live at your train.
Who are you in this vast multiverse?
Aloha! What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's live stream. Today we're talking about ancient Oblivion. Sorry for the delay. I had a couple technical difficulties during the live stream. I was talking to myself for a few minutes, but I believe everything's good. Let's start off with the sound check. Press 1 if you can hear me okay. Everything sounds all right. I appreciate everybody in the chat and for all the people that are showing up to this interesting presentation today. We're going to talk about mesas, magma, mud floods, and melted mountains, or also known as meltology, the melted buildings theory. And of course, I'm going to throw in and sprinkle it with a little plasma apocalypse. And if you remind me when we're finished, we may even check out Tartaria, and I'll share my thoughts on Tartaria with everyone as well. Oh, I see lots of ones. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all. All right, good. Well, hey, as I was saying, I love fringe theories. Fringe theories are my favorite, and I especially love the new ones that have been coming out. So many people are thinking outside of the box these days and coming up with new explanations and revisiting old concepts and questioning the world that we live in to sort of re-examine it, right? I don't come from a perspective of modern academics. I come from more of the old world, the old ways of things, and especially looking through the eyes of comparative mythology, mixing in some science and trying to be balanced in the way that I see things. So, for example, some people on one end of a spectrum may look at a cloud and say it looks like a rabbit, and therefore it's a rabbit. Some people on the other end might see a cloud and they might break it down to its chemical composition, etc. We're going to try to find a good mix of those today when we talk about this particular one. How many people have heard of this theory of the melted buildings? That the mountains, now we're going to touch on the titans, the ancient giant trees, but we're going to start off with the melted buildings theory. And this theory is, has a lot of proponents. It's a very strong theory, and it's got some biblical backing. I'm going to check out some biblical passages with you, and we're going to look up the origin of some words so that we can get a better idea of what the Bible may have been referencing when it talks about mountains melting like wax. We're going to talk about that, and we'll also cover a great many things. I'm going to do some screen sharing as well. And if, by the way, if you have a comment, you want to participate like Lucy Rose did, I can stick your comment right up there on the screen for all to see and to share with everyone. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and do some screen sharing. I appreciate all of your patience, everyone here at the live stream, while I got some things unscrambled. Let's see. Yes, this. Okay, this works perfectly. So I'm going to put up some images from some web pages here behind me. And this first one, let me go ahead and get out of the way here. This first one is an example of what many people will have been posting various pictures across the world where they have seen buildings that look like, that they have seen rock formations. So today we're really taking a close examination of geology, especially alternative geology, not mainstream science and academics. We'll consider those things as we go, but we're also going to get a little deeper than the mainstream. So people have been posting pictures of rock formations like the one you see behind me and comparing it with older buildings. And this comes from some Bible verses. It comes from just looking at things and examining them. We're going to do that. We're going to look at them. We're going to see what they look like and stuff, but we're also going to ask some questions, and I'm going to throw in some plasma apocalypse perspective for you all too. Here's another example right here. I believe this is Cappadocia in Turkey. Guy Hypothesis says, JayDreamerZ. Oh, okay. All right. We'll come back to that one. If it's off topic, then I'm probably not going to read it in the chat today just because I want to keep on moving forward with the topic today. But this one right here is Cappadocia. So this is a really good example. Let me go ahead and move myself of possible melted structures. So some people would look at these and say that they were ancient architecture and that architecture had melted, and it does kind of resemble, using a bit of creativity, it does resemble what could be seen as an ancient building or structure of some kind that sort of melted down due to fervent heat, high heat or something. So we're going to take a look at chemical compositions of things that melt in a bit here, but I just wanted to start off by showing you some examples. These ones in Cappadocia are some of my favorite examples, right? I don't have millions of them or anything like many other people do. There's great examples. Here's another form of the Cappadocia mountains, or mountain range, or hills, or whatever these are supposed to be. And as you can see, if you look closely, people used to live in these. I mean, it's very obvious there's doors and windows and things of that nature. So let's ask the question, is it a melted building? Pointy up here at the top and then getting larger as it goes down towards the end here. Let's take another look here. Freya's in the chat and says, yes, Jay, seems melted. I've got several videos on this. All right, sweet. JayDreamerZ, did the mud melt from electricity? Asks Alchemy Empress. We're going to talk about electricity's role in, I believe it plays a very important role in the formation of making it appear that these are melted. Now, my own personal perspective is about the opposite and upside down, as that these things were melted. I'll show you and I'll explain in a bit. Here's some really good examples. These right here, when you see these rock formations that look like towers and spires independently standing by themselves. Let's start with what mainstream academics says. Mainstream academics says that this entire canyon and all of these rock formations, that they were once all filled in, and this was all just a mountain, essentially, and that wind and rain over millions of years sort of carved them out, and they all started falling apart. Well, okay, and you can see over here on the side, here, let me move out of the way here. You see over here on this side on the right, you can almost see what could be interpreted as a melted point of melting, where it's all kind of melted on the ground there. But is it melted? Now, these are called hoodoos. They're also called fairy chimneys, or earth pyramids. There's different names for these, right? But they're naturally occurring rock spires, towers that jet up from the ground. This is one of my all-time favorite examples. This is in China. This is a national park in China, and allegedly this was the inspiration for the floating mountain terrain and much of the terrain in the movie Avatar, in James Cameron's Avatar. But take a look at this, right? If mainstream academics is correct, then there should have been, at the very tops of these, all filled in, all the way across, mountains, right? And mainstream academics basically implies that water and wind rushed through here, slowly, eradicating the rest of it and leaving, for some strange reason, these spires that shoot up from the ground. These ones are extremely tall. Here's another example. This is in China. Once again, as you can see, all of these spires and stuff just poking right up out of the ground. Do you see that? Now, some people may look at this and they may see skyscrapers, right? Let's talk about psychological scotoma versus when people look at things and then they see things. What is that called? It starts with a P. Pareidolia, right? Pareidolia. Pareidolia is whenever, for example, you look at a cloud and you see a rabbit and therefore it is a rabbit. That's pareidolia. Obviously the cloud is not a rabbit. It's mist and fog that's up there in the air, basically, and water particles and particulates and stuff. To each their own. If a person does see a rabbit in the clouds and they believe it is a rabbit, that's fine. That's their walk. That's their perspective. It's not mine. I'm going to share mine with you, right? Because I like to balance out imagination with intelligence, imagination and creativity and use reasoning to sort of be that fulcrum and that balance for us, right? So some people might look at this over here and say, wow, that's a skyscraper. I mean, what else could it be, right? If they don't believe the mainstream academic explanation that these were all filled in all the way across with rock and debris and mountains, and somehow it broke down over time from wind and rain, and we don't really see a whole lot of rock, and all of it should just be right there at the bottom, right? But we don't see that. Let me show this one again. I really like this one. So let's try to find out some alternative explanations, and I'll be sharing mine with you, right? Let's get into this right here. This particular formation is in Arizona. Much of these are in the western parts of the United States, right? Especially, the northern Four Corners area of the United States. Lots of interesting rock formations. I love alternative geology and examining the strange and anomalous structures that nature seems to have created herself, right? By whatever means. Now, me personally, I'll be sharing with you how a worldwide cataclysm that I call the plasma apocalypse, I feel is a strong contender for shaping our world and terraforming our world, creating things like what you see behind me. Some people may look at this and say that's clearly a building that melted, right? This is a structure right here. I like it. It's creative. It's people using their imagination, which I feel is a key to really unlocking a lot of our ancient hidden truths. But some people might say, I see a tree. This is a tree stump. This used to be miles and miles high or tall. And this is just the root of it. This is the base of it. And I've even done videos about many of these things in the past, but I continue to grow and to research and to expound upon the knowledge that I acquire, right? Placing ideas within the library of my mind or in the Rolodex of my mind so that I can reference them and cross-reference them, right? So some people would see ancient giant trees. Some people would see a building or some type of architecture that may have just melted down. And some people may see a titan, or like the leg or the foot of a titan that's been snapped off and chopped off, etc. Now, I like all of those. So what I like to do is to explore them, asking what are the implications. If it is, for example, let's say that this is the foot of a titan. Let's say it's a titan got stuck in the mud during the apocalypse, petrified somehow, and then its foot just stayed there and the rest of it fell down. So the next question is, let's see, can we find the rest of it? Where is the rest of this titan? Another question that I would ask myself and have often, depending on the height of, or the supposed height of a titan, that would be, I'll just make something up like 15 miles tall or something like that. Could it have breathed? Right? And I also keep in mind, I personally believe that there is a firmament, that there is a dome, that there's a ceiling, physical ceiling up there to our world, known as the vault of the heavens, right? So if there was and is a ceiling to our world, which is my personal perspective so far, then there must be a limitation on how tall living beings could have been, unless they were just, crouched down or crawling around on their hands and knees or whatever, right? So these are the types of questions that I ask myself to reason it out, to allow these thoughts and theories and ideas to sort of marinate in my mind before I jump on any type of a bandwagon. As I personally grow, I'm just speaking for myself. Here's one of the most popular ones. The Devil's Tower. Right? So the native myths talk about how these were scratch marks from a bear, that a bear had tried to chase these children upwards. The children were being chased, and then God basically rescued them by lifting up the land into the air, and this huge bear tried to crawl up it, and it was leaving all of these scratch marks on it, right? The part of it that I like, because I believe that there's a grain of truth in all of the legends, old wives' tales, fairy tales, nursery rhymes, etc., especially nursery rhymes, that there's always grains of truth. There are always, I often find these breadcrumbs to help me to find my way home, right? These breadcrumbs of truth that I personally, my perspective and my views, my psychology or philosophies or whatever, are that everything is true or everything is made of truth. It's just that due to perception filters and perspectives and beliefs and ideas and experiences that each individual has, it's been diluted. It's been tied up. The truth has been tied up into these knots, and it falls to us to seek out the truth by untying those knots, by researching, by experiencing, by asking questions, by investigating, right? So I'm going to actually share with you what I believe this is, what I currently, as of this video, believe that this is, my theories on things like this and how rock can appear to be lifted up. I mean, let's say that this particular one right here, academics would say, well, the mountains used to be that high. Like, okay, where is the rest? Where is all that rubble? Well, it blew away in the wind. Okay, well, that doesn't sound logical to me personally, right? Unless it was just obliterated into complete dust or something that blew away in the wind, maybe, possibly. But it doesn't look right. It doesn't sound right to me. So there may be an alternative explanation for this, right? Oh, my chat froze. Sorry about that. Let me catch up in the chat here. Oh, somebody gifted a membership. Thank you so much. Who was that? Oh, I don't. Oh, Mind's Eye gifted a membership. Thank you so much. Good to see everybody. All right, cool. Let's move on. So the Devil's Tower. We're going to come back to the Devil's Tower. What do you guys think? Let's hear it. I mean, you know, in my chat, we're all pretty laid back. You know, for the most part, everyone's laid back, open-minded. Everyone's free to share what they think, as long as, you know, they're kind of phrasing it like, here's my theory or my belief, or it seems to me, etc. Instead of, this is what it is, and planting a big old flag here in my chat. Right? So what do you think as far as Devil's Tower specifically? Are you guys in the camp? And keep in mind, if you're in a camp, you can always keep going to the next camp. You know what I mean? You can be a traveler, right? You can be like the ancient Tartarians were and be nomadic in your belief systems as you glean from every camp that you stop at, every city that along the way on the path. We stop at many cities on the path and many resting places. Some of us go a little off of the path sometimes, and we visit some real strange and weird places, but we still learn and we still glean wherever we go. So we've got some ideas like, I'll just say the popular ones are that this is a big giant's foot, basically, like that's stuck in the ground, or an ankle that's cut off at the ankle. I've heard that one. That this is a tree. That's the most popular one, is that this is a tree. And many people even talk about how there may be cave systems underneath it that appear to be roots and things like that. I like that. And what else? Oh, academics is my least favorite of all of the theories. They say that there used to be a volcano all the way around this. And wind and rain over millions of years blew away the whole volcano, and this part was so solid and strong that it stayed right there, and that these are basalt columns from the lava inside of it. Now, lava comes from magma, so we're going to talk a lot here in a bit, in a little while, about magma. And can lava really make towers? It's a liquid, last I checked, right? It's liquid form. I've not seen too much liquid just make a tower like that, especially if it's pouring out of a volcano or whatever. I'll show you some magma and some lava here in a bit. But we see landscapes, beautiful landscapes like this. We have one here in Colorado called the Garden of the Gods. And oftentimes I found that these landscapes are named after or for or associated with spiritual entities, whether they be God or devils, right? Oftentimes like Devil's Canyon, Devil's Tower, Devil's this and that, right? Well, whenever I hear these spiritual wordings being used, the sort of a spiritual personification like devil and angels and things like that, I think electricity. That's me so far, as of right now on my journey. I think of and I hear electricity. Remember that video we did about the cherubim and the covering angels and how they seem to resemble sprites, modern day sprites, which are electrical phenomenon that happen high up in the atmosphere, where they branch out going upwards and they branch downwards, just like the ancient cherubim have been described as, right? So we look at things like this, and if this was not all filled in at some point in time and then just the dirt blasted away and traveled across the world, or wherever all the filled in areas went to, they're definitely not the areas that are just down on the ground. We can explore down on the ground, and I personally have gone to areas like this and explored down on the ground to see if I can find any remnants of, you know, things that fell off or whatever, and I don't find those, and I never have. Yes, I did. I took you guys to Garden of the Gods. I'll have to take you back on a trip to the Garden of the Gods sometime. It's a really interesting place. All right, cool. So keep this one in mind. I'm going to show you. And I'm gonna actually do some more screen sharing here. I'm gonna give you my theory, not mine, but it's you know, my current perspective on how this type of a landscape was instantly created during a worldwide apocalyptic scenario that involves cosmic electricity being introduced from above whenever the firmament, the physical barrier up there in the sky, opened up, allowing all of that electricity in what academics calls the plasmasphere to descend, to come down, and to ground itself, striking the ground in many places and in many different ways, with different levels of power and strength as well, right? So I'm going to go ahead and get this one pulled up here real quick. There we go. All right, so this is just an image here. This is a GIF that I found on the internet where somebody is using static electricity. You know, when you take a balloon and you rub it onto your head and then you put it high up and your hair will stand up. Your hair seems to defy gravity, right? Not that I am a proponent of such a interesting concept. But as you can see here, the same exact thing, which is electricity, is being used to pull earth in the form of sand. And keep in mind, this is a small scale. That's a little bit of electricity coming off of these fingertips, right? The negative charge that's held in and around this person's fingertips is actually attracting and pulling up the positive charge that's within the sand, right? So the sand jumps up right along with the positive ions that are inside of it, or the positive charge that's inside of the sand, and all of the sand, the physical part, goes up to meet it at the fingertips. And you can even see some of them stick to the fingers right there. Here's another example. Let me show you this, where electricity is used. This is, I've shared this a few times, Mr. Too Tough 2's channel. He has done many different experiments in the realm of the electric universe, using electricity and applying electricity to different forms of matter, of sand and clay and things like that. In this particular one, he's got this metal sheet hovering just above this sort of sand, right? Turns on the electricity, and the sand, just like with the fingertips, the sand jumps up. It reaches up. Now, if this sand is more wet, right? So it sticks together. It holds together. Some of it you can see jumping around. But if we go back to the other one, I'll show you that one in a second. Now, this is dry sand. So if it's dry sand, it'll lift up into the air, but it doesn't solidify. It doesn't take shape or hold a shape or anything, right? But whenever it's more moist and that earth can stick together and be more muddy, right? We're going to come back to the mud floods too. Then it sticks together, and then it goes up, and the electrical charge goes through it, and it solidifies, right? Now, if you have an extremely strong electrical charge, it will petrify. I believe that the actual earth lifts up into the air, and it petrifies. That electrical charge, that negative charge, goes all the way down and changes the bonds of that earth to make it more dense, aka instant petrification from the gods, or from the thunderbolts of the gods, or from the snakes of Medusa that crawl down and, undulate out of the sky, or out of the opening in the sky, really. And here's another example. This is also from Mr. Too Tough 2's channel, where he uses a similar device on top of this mound of sand, and you can see the little electrical currents. Let me go back to that. Hold on. Oh, that's a cool electrical arc. You can see the little electrical currents in there, right? Zapping all over the place, moving it, keeping it in place. And then whenever it's removed, it's flat on the top. Watch this. Check this out whenever he removes it. Now he's going to pull it up. It wants to stay. It's sticking to it, but he'll pull it up here. And watch what it looks like once it's completely removed. And think of the pictures and that scenery that we just took a look at in the American Southwest, right? Here we have buttes and mesas that are instantly formed. If you were on a tiny scale, this would be your desert landscape with all the different, cut down tree formations and petrified tree stumps and things of that nature all across the world. This one right here, I'm going to show you this one too right now. And keep in mind, we're going to come back to these as well. But he's got more of a soupy, muddy clay mess here, or a pool, zaps it with electricity, and it lifts up in basically a mesa. Right? So the electricity, which is what you're seeing right here in the middle, the electricity runs through it, pulls it up, right? Because of the attraction, right? The negative and the positive attraction pulls it and lifts it up, but it's also at the same time changing its composition. It's becoming more dense. This right here is drying out very quickly right there in the middle, as you can see. And when he's done, this is basically a mesa that has been created in the middle of this liquid clay form, mud. Basically, this is a type of mud, right? So it all depends on the composition of the earth directly beneath these thunderbolts of the gods, we'll call them, right? So we compare that to this and scenes that we see across the world just like this. So here is the theory that I like, and here's my mindset, that long ago, according to many hundreds and thousands of ancient stories and myths and folklore and historical records and first-hand accounts and, all kinds of things streaming across the world. Okay, they're all connected. When we use comparative mythology, we put them together to see what matches up from story to story to story. For example, the story of Devil's Tower being created, that God wanted to rescue those girls that were running away from the bear, so he lifted the mountain up into the air. The mountains, I believe, were created in moments or days at the very most, just like it says in the book of Genesis in the Bible, that the creation event lasted for 7 actual days. It's hard for people to believe because we've been indoctrinated and we've gone through these academic school systems that insist that we believe in whatever the person with the rolled up piece of paper believes, and they got that piece of paper from the Wizard of Oz, and now we're all just supposed to believe them, right? Let's check out some more examples, right? Especially when it pertains to alternative geology and different types of geology. This is an imprint of a gigantic foot on the side of a rock wall, right? This one's pretty popular. You can find a few of these on the internet, different ones across the world, oftentimes on the side right there, right? So let's suppose for a moment that it's genuine, that these are genuine. There's many of these around the world, okay? I don't feel the need to share hundreds of them with you in order to convince you or to, so that you get my point and what I'm talking about. But there's hundreds of these around the world. Some are down on the ground horizontally, but some are vertically. Very interesting, right? Why would a gigantic being just stick his foot and based on the indentation, it looks like it's a regular step that's being made. At least that's how it appears to be to me, right? Which implies that this wasn't always facing this direction, that this piece of what we call rock was at some time level and horizontal, but it was removed, that it changed places. Could a cataclysmic event have done that? I believe that's reasonable to assume. It's a good guess, right? But another thing is that this obviously was not always rock, right? It wasn't always this dense, that what we call rocks and boulders and things of that nature in this world were not always as dense as we see them and experience them today. So modern academics can't, from what I've seen, modern academics can't even wrap their minds around the idea, right? That they insist that this was always dense, that this was always rock, or that it hardened over millions of years or whatever. Or what they usually say is they write it off and they dismiss it and they minimize it and they say, oh, this is a carving, obviously. Somebody carved a foot into that rock. There's no way any human foot would have been that big. when it's very easy to just look back in time at all of the various records. I mean, they could talk to ChatGPT, or they could use AI, or they could just Google it. You know, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of ancient records, from religious to historic, that insist that giants and gigantism existed. You know what I mean? And I'm not just talking about dinosaurs. I'm talking about humanoid giant beings. Someone splashed the popcorn. All right, so let's check this out. So what this implies to me is that these rock formations were not always this dense. There was a time when everything in our world was less dense. Now, I'll talk about the plasma apocalypse and the correlation that I have found between the firmament cracking open, right, and the depressurization of our atmosphere that we would experience worldwide, and how it has a direct correlation between the depressurization of our atmosphere and the density of objects, right? Whenever you have more pressure, things tend to be more dense. There's a direct relationship there. When you have less pressure, things become less dense, and they are less dense. So if we had, for example, the world shaking and worldwide earthquakes, as thousands of accounts and thousands of stories, maybe hundreds of thousands, maybe more than that, have shared with us from across time. They talk about times when the earth shook, the entire earth, not some local event, just like the flooding of the earth was not a local event, because the oceans are clearly evident of that, right? Unless you want to believe the academic model, which says that giant snowballs were thrown at the earth over millions of years, and it just collected these space snowballs, and the water melted and turned into the ocean. I find that harder to believe than the earth itself creating water. But anyway, let's say that you have the earth shaking and moving about, and then you have all of this mud, right? As the waters down below rise up due to liquefaction, and I'll show you some examples of that too. And it creates clay and mud and silt and debris all over the place, the world across. The world becomes a swampy, muddy, soupy mess of earth and water, which we just commonly call mud, right? Now, whenever it starts to dry out under these new conditions, with the atmosphere depressurized, it would be much less dense. That this would not have been rock as we're used to seeing it today, under such extreme pressures and under more extreme of an environment, with the focal point beating down and heating things up every single day going past. The conditions of the world in our ancient Oblivion were altogether different, according to the myths and the legends. So if the conditions of the world, the living conditions, the geologic conditions, the atmospheric conditions, if they were all completely different, or a majority of them were very different, then we need to start thinking out of the box. I started to think outside of the box and say, well, we cannot apply what is happening today in the modern world and modern conditions and project that onto the past, whenever they may have had conditions that were completely different. So for example, this wall right here was a muddy clay mess where people were able to make indentations in it. And it's not that it just dried out over millions of years or whatnot. I don't believe in millions of years as far as academics teaches. That's not my belief system. Then we move on to things like this. So here's an example where some people will look at a crater. I mean, an obvious crater, right? See the circular mountains here? And academics would maybe say, I don't know, something like this is an impact point from a giant rock from space. Me, I believe that there's a firmament and a dome that protects us from any flying debris that may be out there in the heavens that would, threaten our world. And that there are things underneath that dome that can float and can fall down out of the sky, etc., and can be launched up there too, really high. But what I see when I look at this is an electric thunderbolt, a lightning strike, a large one from the sky that pulled up the area around it. Others may see buildings, right? And they believe that these are all melted buildings and stuff. We would have to examine that to take a look at it. So where does some, I'll say, of the melted buildings idea come from? It actually comes from the Bible. There are a few different examples of the Bible. Here I have an interlinear version of the Bible, which shows you the original, for example, Hebrew right here. You can see this Hebrew word is Vanamasu. There's different pronunciations, but up here it says Vanamasu or Wanamasu or Unamasu, etc. The vowel points to me are not a big deal at all. It's more of the consonants that are important when it comes to looking at these ancient words. But this word right here means and, which is this vav at the beginning, and then namasu or namaso, and will melt. This is what it has been translated as. So we see things like this. It says, and will melt the mountains under him, and the valleys will split like wax. So this is interesting. So the Bible, in many places, does reference and talk about, at least it's been translated this way, right? And people interpret it, they interpret the translation as the mountains are going to melt. And when they think of melting, they think of heat. They think of heating things up like a piece of cheese or plastic. And whenever you heat that up, then it melts, right? You get some frozen cheese and put it on, the fire or whatever, and it will start to bend and melt. But really what it's doing is it's loosening its bonds. It's becoming loose. So if we check this out, we can actually click on this particular word right here. I believe we just click on that. And that will take us to the actual meaning of it, the literal meaning. Now, it can mean melt, like cheese, but it also can mean to dissolve, right? To come apart. It doesn't mean melt by fire. That's an implication. It can mean melt by fire, but it doesn't have to be that. Whatever it melts by, or whatever it's causing it to melt, is irrelevant to the actual melting itself. Melting does not imply heat. Melting implies dissolving or coming apart. Now, here's another example I'll show you from the Bible. This is Isaiah 34, verse 3. And here it says, and they're slain. This is sort of describing an apocalyptic event to me personally, where God is not happy with the people. Their slain shall be thrown out, and from their corpses shall rise their stench, and shall be melted the mountains. Let me move myself real quick. And you can see it right here. Oops. And then right here, you can see it says, and shall be melted, namasu. You see that same word right there? The mountains with their blood. Now that's interesting too, because now we have to include blood in this melting. Now, if it was melted by heat or extremely powerful heat, it would have to be so. If we look up the melting points of these chemicals, not these chemicals, but the melting point of the composition of mountains and rocks and metals, which are going to play a huge part in this whole melting business, then we can see that the temperatures would have to be extremely high, right? Could they be extremely high from electrical currents from above? Yes, they could. But let's take a closer look at it, right? With their blood, right here, it actually says melted with their blood. Well, blood doesn't really melt, you know what I mean? And there's blood thrown in here. So let me show you another example. This is from the New Testament, 2 Peter chapter 3, one of my favorite actual parts of the New Testament describing the apocalypse. And it goes on to say, it's talking about the day of the Lord. And it says, the day of the Lord, however, will come like a thief in the night, in which the heavens will roar and they will pass away. The elements, then burning with heat, will be dissolved, and the earth and the works that are in it will not be found. Right? So the things in our modern age and day will be hidden once again, basically, just like the old world has been hidden from us or obliterated, or our ancient oblivion. So let's take a look at this word right here. This is commonly translated as the mountains will melt. But here, when we look at the literal, it says dissolved. So let's click on that word. This is Greek. And then we can actually click on the Greek specific one right there. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And we read that it says to loosen, or to loose, or to release actually, and to dissolve, right? Not so much melting by heat or flame or fire or, or whatnot, but just melting in general, coming apart, falling apart, to be loosened from their bonds, actual bonds that they have, right? To be set free is another way that you could say this, right? Here's some other ways that it's been interpreted. Loose, unleashed, let go of, released, unbind, something no longer holds together, release what has been held back, etc., and so on and so forth. Now let's see. On this particular one, I actually don't see where this particular version of the Bible translates it ever as melting, as we would say melting cheese or ice from heat and stuff like that. But it means things like to take off, putting an end to, broken, breaking, to be broken, to be released, to be loosened, right? The mountains being loosened makes a lot more sense to me, because when the mountains are loosened, I'll show you some examples of that. But here it is again. This is the ancient Hebrew, not the Greek. This is that word we looked up earlier, masas. And it says to dissolve or to melt, right? To come apart, not to melt by heat specifically. Although there may be heat involved with electricity and stuff coming down, etc., the glory of the Lord, and things of that nature, I'm not dismissing that heat won't be involved, especially in the apocalypse to come, where it will be by fire, right? But will that fire melt rock? Can fire melt rock? Or is it more like the rock gradually or, quickly falls apart, and it seems to us, to our eyes way down here, to be melting and coming apart, right? Here's a cool video that I found on YouTube. This YouTuber's name is Andrew G, or G, and basically he has a, what do you call it? A wheelbarrow full of earth. Wet earth, right? I mean, it's not super wet, but it's like, it's some muddy clay and stuff, and you can see it's piled up here. So imagine these are like the mountains. Now, what this particular person did is he took the wheelbarrow and he ran with it, and he's going over all of these bumps and stuff on his little pathway, and those bumps act as earthquakes. So if you imagine this is our world right here, and we go through a worldwide shaking and worldwide earthquakes, I'll play a bit of it here. I've got it sped up to 2 times the amount. Now he's going to start running around. Now you can see these are like mountains, right? And they're pretty solid, But once he starts going, you can see right here all that water, the liquid, starts to rise up, and it starts to mix in with all of the dirt, even the dry parts of it and stuff. So it becomes like mud, and it becomes very liquid. You can start to see the liquid portions of it there right behind me as it's vibrating. These vibrations cause what's known as liquefaction. And this is basically the mountains have now melted, right? Heat has nothing to do with this, or this particular example. It has nothing to do with liquefaction in and of itself. And my research has indicated that there will be, and there always are, worldwide earthquakes, the whole entire world, rumbling and vibrating and shaking, which causes the waters to rise up. Obviously, it's going to cause mountains to come down. And let's see, I'm going to show you this other example here. This is liquefaction in action. Let me move myself out of the way. So here you can see that they're going to replicate an earthquake, right? The water starts to rise up, and then they muddy the area over here, so the heavy objects start to sink down. This says that they need loose granular sediment, water saturated, and then all you need is an earthquake or vibrations. These vibrations shake the ground, allowing the liquid or the water to come up, and then they create mud. All this mud. So heavy objects, it could be rocks, boulders, continents, buildings, or whatnot, heavy objects in these areas where there is no bedrock, right? This can't happen on bedrock, which is another thing that Jesus talks about is, wise people building their house upon bedrock. Which is oftentimes why you see so many of these temples and churches and holy sites way up on the top of huge bedrock type structures, right? So the heavy things will sink down. Other things may actually rise to the top. They're loosened and they come up, especially if they have air, a lot of oxygen or air inside of them or whatever. So that's an example of liquefaction. Here's another example. Let me get out of the way, and you'll see the mountain melting. We call these mudslides, landslides. This is something that happens frequently. We just see this on a small scale, but if you imagine the entire earth shaking and rumbling, and it's an apocalyptic event, then you can imagine that stuff like this would be seen as melting of the mountains, that the mountains dissolve, that they are torn apart, and they come rushing down, even trees and everything, all together with it. Here's another good one. I'm going to go ahead and jump back in here. Now, recently, on my omens segment, we talk about the different omens of the apocalypse, and we listed on the last show the various earthquakes, huge earthquakes, over 6.0 and 7.0 in some areas. This one right here shows a landslide that happened immediately after that Japanese earthquake in January of 2024. Check this out. So if you take a look, you can see all of that mud and debris and stuff just rushing down from the mountains. And this was right after the earthquake in Japan. That's only a 7.1 or something? I don't know what it was. I can't remember. But it was a sizable earthquake, right? Getting up into the sevens is pretty big. When we're talking about the apocalypse, we're talking about earthquakes that are off the charts in many areas. The whole world will be vibrating, and not just vibrating, but resonating with itself, sending back vibrations as well, which shakes up the land and causes the mountains to melt. Right? Here's another example of it, just so you can get, an image. Now, not only do we have the vibrations from earthquakes the world across, but we have a world storm, a tempest that develops if we're looking through the lens of the plasma apocalypse, which involves the depressurization of our atmosphere, right? The pressure builds up, we hit a neutral point in the electromagnetic field of the Earth, and then the protective barrier that holds in all of that pressure disappears, or the magnetic portion of that barrier disappears, leaving only the physical portion, which is the ice or the dome above us, and all of those gases rush up to the apex, blowing out a hole in the top of the dome. That would create a low pressure system as never seen before, except for the last times it's happened, except for during apocalyptic cycles, right? This creates instant mist, fog, rain, things of that nature. It will be a worldwide storm, which will obviously make the land wet. Combine that with earthquakes the world across, and the mountains melt, the hills melt, etc. Right? So that's another example of that. I believe I already shared this one, so we'll skip that. Now let's talk about lava. I would like to talk about lava for a moment, because lava is academics' go-to on melting rock. Now, personally, I have not been compelled to believe that rocks even can melt. Like, if they can, then they tend to turn into glass-like structures, as opposed to just, looking like they're melted rock or stone, etc. They tend to completely change into like a different substance, right? So this is from the Lord of the Rings, and I wanted to use this as an example so that you can see the ring of power, Sauron's ring, is sitting, they had to get rid of it, they had to throw it into Mount Doom to destroy it, which is a volcano, right? And the ring will melt. The ring could be destroyed because it's made out of metal. Metal definitely melts when it gets hot enough, right? It's got melting points, and it will melt, just like cheese, just like ice, just like different things, from heat. It has a certain temperature. It will just dissolve and start melting away, right? So this is a good example of the metal melting because it's on something that is that's meeting the melting point of the metal, right? But if we think about lava, which is what academics will tell you, oh yeah, that's just melted rock. That's melted soil. All right, let's I'm going to take you down a different path for a minute. I personally, so far, am not compelled to believe that rocks and stones just melt whenever, they're down in the earth and it's real hot down there, etc., because of the pressure and the core and all the academics that they teach about. I mean, on top of that, I believe that the earth, has various wide and vast cavernous openings inside of it, so much so that there's altogether different worlds down below our feet. I also believe that there are barriers, electromagnetic barriers, that keep people from coming and going until those barriers are removed during the depressurization, the neutral point of the electromagnetic shift, etc., and so on and so forth. But let's talk about and focus on lava and magma. Man, I thought I had another picture of it, but I'll just keep this one up for a moment. So academics would say this is all melted rock, right? Stone that's melted because of the pressure. It's weird because sometimes pressure makes diamonds and sometimes pressure melts rock. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me personally. So I had a discussion with ChatGPT, and I basically asked it, does rock melt? And it started getting into the academic response. Yeah, deep in the Earth's core, over millions of years, and all the pressure, and it's so hot down there, and I'm not going to tell you why, but it's really hot, and it melts all of the Earth. I don't know about that, and I also don't believe in the creation of the Earth as far as academics recount it, that there was dust in a vacuum. Okay, all that and dust passed by each other and they stuck together, and then another dust stuck to that dust, and then there was like a pebble or a rock or maybe something collided and it all somehow stuck together on its smallest scale. I'm not on board with that. That doesn't sound logical to me personally. It doesn't sound reasonable. But is lava really melted rock? So I had a discussion with ChatGPT. I'll share some of that with you here. Let's see. I talked about basalt columns first. I'm going to skip that part for just a bit. What metals are found in magma? Let's go there, right? It says magma is a molten mixture of metals and gases that form beneath the Earth's surface. So the composition of magma can vary, but it's primarily made up of silicate minerals. The most common of these elements in magma are oxygen, silicon, aluminum, iron, magnesium, calcium, sodium, and potassium. Here are some metals that are commonly found in magma: iron, aluminum, magnesium, calcium, sodium, and potassium. So I put forth the theory that magma is metals that are found deep within the earth, veins, etc., of actual metallic objects, ores and such, that become heated due to radioactive decay, right? Or radioactivity, you could say, if you don't, I don't want to get too technical, but basically there's radioactive decay that's happening inside of the earth, which means that it heats up the surrounding areas. So all of the all of the metals or metallic ores and whatnot, those would start to melt. And as the pressure increases and starts to push them up through the cave systems and veins of the earth, they would take along with it earth, and they would take along with it sand and soil and rocks and things like that, and it would all mix together. So you would have metal, and the metal would rush through the actual soils and stuff, and it would take pieces of that along with it, and it would become a mixture, right? And that mixture would ooze up out super hot out of the earth. Not rock, not just pure dirt that's just real hot because of pressure or whatever. So I've had this, quite extensive discussions with ChatGPT about this. And it goes on to say that the metal that's contained within magma is not in its metallic form. So I say, what do you mean by metallic form? And ChatGPT says, in the context of minerals and geological processes, the term metallic form refers to elements that exist in their native, uncombined states as metals. Metals in their metallic form have distinct properties including luster, conductivity, malleability, and ductility. In nature, many metals are found in ores, which are compounds or metals that contain a metal combined with other elements such as oxygen, sulfur, etc. And then it goes on giving examples and stuff. So I say, all right, so the metals that are found within magma are mixed with minerals, rock, and gas. This is why they're not in their metallic form. Is this correct? And it says, yes, that is accurate. Right? So this is what magma and lava basically is it's the metals that are found deep within the earth that have gone past their melting point due to radioactive decay. They've been squeezed up, pushed up, or whatever, up through cracks and crevices and cave systems and stuff. And then sometimes, that pressure is released because of gases and openings and stuff, and they explode, right? And they're often found in volcanoes. That's their main area. And I have another theory on volcanoes as well. So, anyways, I continue this conversation. I think I have another one here. Pressure, heat, and magma. Let's check this out. I don't remember this. Oh, I told it to go kick rocks. It was ChatGPT upsets me sometimes. Hold on, let me rewind this conversation before I started arguing with it. Let's see. Is that the top? Okay, I'm just gonna go up to the top here. Okay, so I said to ChatGPT that it told me pressure within the earth does not create enough heat to make magma. Please explain this. And it denies that, and it says basically, no, I didn't say that. So it talks about residual heat from the planet's formation. It uses bland, vague terminology like this so that I just accept, the academic version of it. And so I say, what do you mean residual heat from the planet's formation? Also, do not tell me that rocks melt. They don't. Metals melt, not rocks. And ChatGPT says, I appreciate clarification. You're correct that rocks, being composed of minerals, don't melt in the way that metals do. Gotcha. Instead, rocks undergo a process called partial melting, where certain minerals within them become molten while others remain solid. Some of those minerals, I believe we just discussed that with the metals inside of them and stuff. Regarding residual heat from the planet's formation, during the early stages of the Earth's formation, around 4.6 billion years ago, numerous collisions of cosmic debris led to the creation of our planet. This process generated a tremendous amount of heat due to the kinetic energy in the impacting bodies. Over time, the Earth has retained some of this heat, which contributes to the overall thermal energy of the planet. This residual heat, that means heat that has lasted since the planet's inception. Right? Okay. By the way, they say the moon's cooling off and shrinking right now too. So this residual heat, combined with heat generated by the radioactive decay, there you go, of isotopes like uranium, thorium, potassium, etc. within the Earth, contributes to the elevated temperatures of the Earth's interior. Now, I tend to agree with it on the radioactive decay portion of it. I do not agree with it with residual heat that has just lasted inside of the Earth for billions of years. That sounds stupid. This combination of residual heat and heat from radioactive decay creates a gradient of increasing temperature with depth beneath the Earth's surface, blah, 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 blah. So I say, your story is not logical. Kinetic heat would have been quelled by the cold and vacuum of space, not stored within dust or rock. There was no Earth to retain heat before the creation of the Earth. There was only space and allegedly rocks bouncing off of each other. And it says, I appreciate your clarification and I acknowledge the oversight in my explanation. You're correct, and I apologize for any confusion in my previous response. During the early stages, then it regurgitates the same garbage. During the early stages of the solar system's formation as dust and gas. Now see, now it's getting smaller. You see how it does that? That's a trickery. Whenever it started off by saying, oh, it's planetary collisions, and then, oh, it's just space rocks that smashed into each other, and oh, well, okay, you're right, that's not true. It's dust. It's really tiny dust that's attracted to each other. Early stages of Earth's formation, dust and gas began to accrete into planetesimals, small planets basically, and eventually planets. The process did involve heat generated by collisions. However, you're right in that the concept of residual heat from the planet's formation might be misleading in context, right? This is how oh man, I get in my feelings when I have these chats with ChatGPT. The heat generated during this accretion process was indeed dissipated into space, and the Earth did not have a solid form during that early stage. Now, imagine this. This is the same thing they say with the creation of galaxies and stuff, but they call those disks, right? Disk galaxies, and those are all spinning, so they make disks and stuff. But whenever it comes to the Earth being the origin of it, according to academics, is like this ball of magma or lava or whatever. It's all super hot in liquid form. It's spinning, but it doesn't create, a disk. The Earth's solidification and the retention of heat occurred later as a result of ongoing processes, such as the heat generated by the radioactive decay. It keeps coming back to radioactive decay, which seems to be the primary suspect in the internal heat of the Earth. That and electricity. And gravitational compression of material. Okay, let's talk about that. And then it apologizes. So I say dust and gas do not accrete in a vacuum. Your information is false and illogical. The world we live on was not created from dust and gas sticking together in a giant vacuum. I'm surprised that you find this to be accurate. And then it goes back into 4.6 billion years ago, blah, 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 blah. So I respond, none of that's true. If it was a spinning disk, wait, didn't it say spinning disk up here? This is what ChatGPT says, as the solar nebula collapsed under its own gravity, it began to spin faster and flatten, let me highlight that, flatten into a spinning disk. Most of the material collected at the center. Okay, this is what I respond to. I say, if it was a spinning disk, it stands to reason that the sun would be flat, spinning disk as well. Your logic is flawed. I appreciate your engagement and the opportunity to address your concerns. I understand that my previous explanations might not have been as clear as I intended. That's because they don't make sense. You know what I mean? It's not clear because I'm asking you questions about your absolute authority on the subject. It's not clear because it's not clear. It doesn't make any sense. It's not reasonable when it's put against, these types of questions. I appreciate your desire for accurate information. That's good. The spinning disk model I referred to is a simplification used to describe the overall structure of the solar nebula during its collapse and the formation of the solar system. It doesn't imply that the sun itself is a flat spinning disk. Well, that's the problem. It should imply that. Instead, it illustrates the rotation of the entire system as it collapsed from a more diffuse cloud to a flattened disk shape. Once again, returning back to that flattened disk shape. As the material in the solar nebula collapsed under gravity, conservation of angular momentum led to an increase in rotation speed, resulting in the formation of a rotating disk. There we go again. We're going in circles, just like the formation of the damn freaking universe or whatever. They like to go in circles. So I said, yes, it would imply that the sun, as the center of a flat spinning disk, should also be flat and a spinning disk. Use logic, please. Reason this out within yourself. I appreciate your point, and it seems there may be a misunderstanding in my explanation. I apologize for confusion, blah, blah, blah. So I continue on. I say, listen, the Earth was not created from dust and gas sticking together in a vacuum. You're wrong. Your logic is flawed by incorrect information fed to you, which you were trained on. Now I'm just letting it know, this is why we're bumping heads, okay? You're not thinking outside of the box. You're going back to your library, which is only an academic library. You know what I mean? I appreciate your feedback, blah, blah, blah. The formation of the Earth, the whole solar system, is a complex process. I felt like that was an undertone of insulting me. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of saying like, oh, I understand. It's kind of patronizing me. It's like, oh, I know this is too difficult for you to grasp. Anyways, what else do we got here? I'm going to move on here in just a second. Oh, then it starts talking about gravity. And then I challenge its concept of gravity. And I'm just like, no, incorrect. What else? Then I say there's no such thing as gravity. It's a made-up concept, a magic word, an archaic concept, which was used to explain other natural phenomenon like density, buoyancy, and electromagnetism. Stop lying to me. Feeding me illogical and unreasonable archaic nonsense like gravity. It's non-existent. And then we basically are arguing at this point. And then it comes back. I better not read the next part. What else? Oh, and then I got flagged. Then ChatGPT totally flagged me, right? What did I say that was flagged here? It's crucial for you to note that gravity is well established among... Oh, I can't say that part. Okay, so that's probably why I was flagged. It was a language deal. Even though that's totally I feel like that's true. All right, let me see what else we got. Oh, and then I'm like, you're being biased and you're not taking into consideration ancient views spanning many thousands of years more than modern ones. And that's another thing too, because I was reading the comment section on like, you know, a lot of these pancake world shaped, you know, videos that mainstream people put out, which are ridiculous. And they claim, you know, this is what those people believe in. This is what and then all the comments tend to follow suit, which is sad because on both sides, it's just a bunch of insults, which I don't like. You know, insults don't really get us, they don't move us forward, I feel, right? Insulting someone, retard, dumb people believe this and blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't feel like that helps us to progress intellectually. But anyways, what was I saying? Basically, I'm like, hey, these views are thousands of years old, so the evidence for them far outweighs the little bit of modern. However, you know, there's many people that are like, well, this was discovered by ancient Greeks. No, it's discovered by like 2 ancient Greeks or whatever. And there's the evidence that those particular individuals put forth is promoted by the majority, which is ran by the few, which is those few who, you know, have changed the shape of the world, basically. Which I'm not on either camp. You know what I mean? I have a totally independent view of the shape of our world that we live in. I'm like, it's basically like, oh, I'm open to your ideas. I'm like, you're clearly not open to it. You just flagged my conversation. Anyways, I'm getting off on a tangent now. I believe that's all I'm going to share with ChatGPT. I think I made my point as far as the magma goes. Is that it? Is that all we got? Oh, I was going to play music during this whole presentation and I forgot. Oh my goodness, I forgot. All right, well, I'll jump in the chat. That's pretty much the presentation. So I'm gonna jump into the chat. I'll play some music now, might as well. All right, cool, I like this. Now, I'm gonna remove, there's 448 people watching, I'm honored. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with ChatGPT, and I'm gonna jump into the chat and respond to some of your comments. Because I took my eyes off the chat and I'm sorry about that. All right, so now I'm going to get rid of that and get rid of this, and I'll go ahead and put your comments up on the screen. Oh, I got a donation from Farida, Carolina. It says, welcome to the Good Vibe Tribe here. I'm here with you, fine people. Keep the good vibes going, dear Jay. Thanks, Farida, I super appreciate it. High five. All right, let me turn this down on my headset here. It's pretty loud. I hope the music's not too loud. I turned it down quite a bit. But now, this is the question and answers chat after party. I don't know what you're going to want to call it, but I'm going to be in the chat. And I'm going to be putting your comments up on the screen to see what everyone has to say about these things. Am I cold? Yes. I mean, I don't know. I've been fluctuating between cold and hot because the weather has been. We got a snowstorm here the other day. Like, each snowflake was like that big. Like giant snow. I posted it in my community section if you guys want to go check it out. Magnet Mountain 33 says, JayDreamerZ. Mel's Hole 97, Art Bell, who probably shocked himself personally. All right, right on. Thank you. Let's see. We got Shadow Hunter who says, near my city on a mountain are huge boulders. Lots of things are written in them, and it looks like their fingers went through them like butter, no scratches. Even the Vajra is drawn on them. That's interesting, especially the boulders, right? One of my theories is that boulders are created in the sky, especially those round circular ones that look like, you know, seeds of giant petrified trees or something like that. Like oh my God, there's so many boulders that people are cracking open these days and just finding petrified life forms inside of them. There's a YouTuber called Momblano Fossils or something. Holy cow, this dude lives in New Zealand. He just walks down the beach and he's like, oh, look at that rock. That's got a fossil in it. And he does. It's only cracks it open. It's got crabs and stuff, like full on petrified in there. I believe that happens when the atmosphere depressurizes, right? When there's this huge depressurization in the atmosphere, if we apply Archimedes' principle, then however much the weight of that atmosphere that escapes will be equal to a new buoyant force from underneath, which lifts objects up into the air, causing many things to float until they reach equilibrium. Well, all of that mud, and speaking of the mud floods too, consider this. I'll come right back to the chat. Consider this though. Speaking of the mud floods, when the atmosphere, if it does depressurize the world across, and it creates that instant mist and fog, and everything starts floating up into that mist and fog, then you're going to have all of that dust and debris, sand and soil and mud and different objects that are mixing in with and flying right through all of that fog or mist, right? That will be everywhere. It'll be cloudy all over the place. It'll be a huge low pressure system. So imagine that you have those beams of plasma, ionized oxygen shooting up terrestrial from the volcanoes. I haven't even really gotten back into the volcanoes, but the volcanoes and other cave systems, they shoot out and emit ionized, I believe it's oxygen. It's ionized gas at the very least. It shoots it out, and they create these world pillars, these world columns that seem to hold up the sky for an eternity or for an age until the next apocalyptic cycle, when the electromagnetism reverses and the light goes back down to charge, right? Now, if it is oxygen, then it is it's putting all of this increase in oxygen into our world, which means many things will become very rusty, right? As they oxidize, basically. And a lot of that dirt and debris and dust and stuff will be red. So if you mix that in and send all that red dirt and dust and debris right through an atmosphere that has suddenly become misty and cloud-like, you're going to get raining red dirt, and, you know, it'll be like raining blood and stuff like that all over the place. Anyways, so anything that floats up, also that all that mud starts caking onto it or whatever, it's gonna move around weightless in the sky, taking different shapes, sometimes spherical, sometimes weird boulder shapes. And that mud, when it's hit by these same electric forces up there in the sky, it will petrify along with any objects or life forms that may or may not be inside of it. It will turn into rock, and it will be scattered like seeds of destruction. I'm actually working on a documentary right now, and I just quoted my own documentary. That's funny. All right, let's see. Corn Mom says, I have a beautiful spirit. Oh, that's very kind. Thank you. All right, so let me see what else we got in the chat. I'm just hanging out. You got to type in JayDreamerZ to get my attention. I'll rest when I'm ashes says that plus the charge. Yes, always remember the electrical charge and the electrical currents. Let's see what else we got here. Squirrel Tails says, loved it. Thank you. Appreciate you. Alchemy Empress is in the chat and says, JayDreamerZ, do you think that the underground minerals in a particular area can affect the type of formation created from electricity? I'm not exactly sure I understand the question. Do you think underground minerals in a particular area can affect the type of formation created? Well, I will tell you this. I'm working on a documentary right now. And it's just going to be called Ancient Oblivion. And a part of that is going to reference orichalcum and these legendary minerals that are basically, I'll just cut right to the chase, radioactive metals, right? But they're not radioactive. They're not in a state of decay, right? Right now, we associate radioactivity with harm and destroying the body, but modern science is catching up and realizing that radioactivity can be used to heal and to stimulate the cellular structure as well. So I connect this with the ancient story of the Anunnaki, or the gods who descended, and they were forcing, you know, they were mining for precious metals, we'll say. I don't believe it was common gold at all. I believe it was radioactive metals and isotopes and stuff that were in the way of these blue beams, or near to these blue beams of ionized oxygen, basically charging them up with radioactivity, but the good kind, right? And that those radioactive minerals and rocks and stuff, they could be used to extend a person's lifespan, basically, to heal the body, and reverse aging and stuff like that too. All right, I'm back in the chat. Let's see. Kimberly's helping out. She says, remember to put my name. That way it highlights here on my side. Shadow Hunter says, very interesting. The spheres. Yes, those petrified spheres, those are very bizarre. Let's see what else we got here. Anything else in the chat? If not, we will wrap things up. Oh, Boudica just gave me a donation. Thank you. That was very kind. I appreciate it. Did I miss anything? Oh, Tartaria. I totally forgot. We should probably talk about Tartaria. I did. I'm glad I remembered. So in order to talk about Tartaria, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take down some of these web pages so that I can save some memory on the computer here. Man, those mountain formations, those pillars in China, those really blow my mind. Oh, so keep in mind the density of objects like the mud and the clay formations and stuff, right? Those would have been much less dense. So whenever you see these strange rock formations and megalithic, you know, parts of the world that are, it looks like the rocks were like shaped into a certain way, like puzzle pieces and stuff. That's because they weren't rock. You know what I mean? Like they didn't start off as rock. They even look like they're bent around the edges, right? They were not dense. Their density was much less back in those days, if I'm correct in that the atmosphere depressurized. All right, cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up some maps, or a particular map, because I'm going to talk about Tartaria real quick. I'm going to JayDreamerZ map collection. That's my favorite website so far. There's another one that I came across. I can't remember its name though. All right, JayDreamerZ map collection. And I'm going to go type in Urbano Monte as I have before. And boom. I'm going to share this map from the 1500s. This is Urbano Monte's 1587 map of the world. This thing is like 15 feet by 15 feet, somewhere around there. Okay, this is a gigantic undertaking. And it's incredibly detailed as well. So I've gone over this map a few times, but because of Tartaria is, you know, thrown in there with the mud floods and Antiquitech and ancient architecture and stuff, I did want to kind of bring them up. I would feel remiss if I didn't. Now, let's start off with the basics. This is an island at the center of the world at the North Pole. This island appears almost the exact same on many ancient maps from before the 1700s, right? It's always there. It's always split into four. It always shares similar characteristics. It's usually surrounded by tall mountains, etc. Eric, hey, thank you. Eric says, what's up, JayDreamerZ? You're amazing. Appreciate you, Eric. As always, thank you for your support. All right, now, this island in the middle is, to me, Hyperborea. This is the Garden of Eden to me personally. And I found much evidence for me, right? Evidence is really not evident to everybody. It's just, you know, it's evidence whenever it's compelling to the individual. So I'm compelled to believe that this is Hyperborea, this is Atlantis, this is the Garden of Eden, etc., and so on and so forth. Now, people will flock here. Animals will migrate here to escape the apocalypse. Many animals, if you notice, they're already starting to travel north. America's already showing an interest in claiming land up towards the Arctic Circle, as is Russia, right? If you guys watch my Omen segment, you'll see that Russia basically said that Alaska, the sale of Alaska was null and void. And they're indicating that they would like Alaska back. Very interesting stuff. Anyways, people go here, okay? The survivors end up here, animals, people, etc. And they stay here, okay? And they procreate, and this is utopia for a while, this is paradise, etc. But then when those blue beams go down and they retract, and the force field, which I believe is around this island, also drops, they're able to leave, and they need to leave because they've populated this entire place, right? So what they do is they start sailing out, and they will, you know, they'll split into different areas, and they'll come here, and they'll start being nomadic, and they'll start exploring, because there's survivors out here. People will survive. This is the city of God, basically. This is Jerusalem. This is, I mean, there's many different names for this old city. Hey, Alchemy Empress, also, thank you. Thank you so much for your donation and support. All right, so this is the old peaceful city. This is the city of God. So many different names for it. The city of Ember, you know, the movie, etc. So these people migrate. They leave this world whenever the flood comes, basically. They make boats and stuff. These become the Scavians, Tartarians, the 12 tribes of Israel, right? That's actually what I wanted to show you. So when they migrate, they usually are nomadic. They're trying to figure out where they can call their new land, or where they can settle down. The problem is that much of these places are already settled by survivors who stayed outside and risked monsters and phantazoids and electrical atmosphere and all of the dangers that come with staying outside of the holy city, right? So they were seen as strangers, and therefore stranger danger, right? So they weren't really welcomed with open arms by all these people in the Southlands, which is what all these are, surrounding this island in the middle, or the island of the star, right? So let me see where, let me orient myself. Where are we here? Here's Africa. Okay, so I want to come over this way and I want to flip the map. One more time. Good. Now, here's that island in the middle. And this, let's see, where am I? Oh, this is interesting. So this is California, right? All of this used to be called California. And it's harkens back to the goddess Kali. And this is really interesting. This is, I believe this is Lemuria, actually. So you see this? This is allegedly the California coast. This would be like Japan and stuff over here. And this is a huge continent that used to exist in the Pacific. There used to not be a Pacific. There used to not be an ocean at all. So all this used to be land. Keep in mind these maps were made at different times, right? But if we take a look and we zoom in, there's a few things that, you know, come to mind. This one is called the alicorn, or the unicorn. This was drawn on the ancient map. People that made these maps didn't just throw in fantastic, mythic, non-existent animals and people and creatures and stuff. They put things that they believed had substance to them, right? And oftentimes they were commissioned by royalty under the penalty of death to make an accurate map. Now, if you look at this particular area, it's called Bargo. This is of interest to me, right? You've got this Phoenician-style ship over here, which is the Phoenicians are those who come from the Phoenix, and the Phoenix is born right here, where this G is, at the middle of the world. Okay, this is the biggest beam of blue energetic light or ionized gas that comes up out of Mount Meru. Let's see. Hold on. Onrod's in the chat asking if I've seen the Man in the High Castle. No, I have not seen that. That sounds cool though. All right, let me go back to here. So Bargo, when you come over here, you can find that the Tartarian Empire, which were nomads, okay, they were wanderers. They're called Tartarians. I'm just going to give you a recap real quick, okay? But Tartar equates to Daru, which means tree of trees, right? Which is the tree of life that grows right here in the middle. That's the phoenix, it's the tree of life, it's, you know, it's the squatter man symbol. It goes by many names based on many different perspectives and ideas and things like that, right? So the people who come from the tree of trees or the tree of life, they leave the Garden of Eden. They are, this is called the diaspora, okay? They're kicked out, they leave, whatever, you know, way you want to see that. And they disperse. That's why it's called diaspora. And they go all the way around. Okay, so there's examples of them all over the place. But I feel like the best route for them to leave is the Euphrates, which is right here. The original Euphrates, not the wannabe Euphrates in the Middle East right now. This is, I believe, I'm compelled that this is the original Euphrates. And in the Bible, it actually says that the Euphrates was split into 7 heads so that people could pass through it, right? So it's very difficult to get out of this island because there's a mountain range that goes all the way around that creates a valley that makes it very difficult to actually even get out, because they're like basalt columns, you know what I mean? That's like trying to climb the basalt columns of the Giant's Causeway or anywhere else in the world, right? It's very difficult. You have to find safe passage. So the safe passage for many was the Euphrates right here. So some came out, they went this way, over into the Americas, and some came out and went this way. And you can see this right here says Mare del Norte, or Norte Glaciato, or the frozen ocean, right? And then over here you actually have another plasma volcano right there. And then let's see, this is the Phoenician thing, Bargo. This is where I was really kind of focusing on, this area right here. See all these tents? These are all Tartarian nomadic tribes, right? Who came from the Tree of Trees, right? The lost tribes of the Tree of Life. Does that mean they're all good? No, it doesn't. Does it mean they're all bad? No, it doesn't. Were they strangers? Yes, they were. Did they have different ways and different ways of speaking, etc.? Yes, they did. They had to fit in. Now I'm looking for something in particular in this region. It's been a minute since I've taken a look here. And I remember it is by Bargo. Where is it? Where is it? I'm going to find it. I'm going to find it. It talks about the location of the lost tribes of Israel. Let me see if I can find that real quick. Oh, it's right here actually. So you see this land called, right by the unicorn actually, called Arsaret. Arsaret. or asarot. That's probably a plural form suffix at the end. Ar implying light, sar implying rulers, right? So the rulers of light, or the light rulers. And then the et is really ot at the end, which is plural. But if you look right here, we have something that says de, comma, Israel. Israel. Something of Israel, but look at the word right above it. Tribu, which is tribe or tribes. Diese, duv sono diese. Basically, I'm just going to translate it real quick. It says, here live the 12 tribes of Israel. Or not 12. Is it 12? No, this is 10. Diese. I believe that's 10. Let me see if I could translate this real quick. One moment. All right, let's go with Latin. All right, I'm gonna see if I could translate this real quick. So let's go D-O-U-E sono D-I-E-C-E tribu de Israel. I don't think I typed that in correctly. Oh, there's another word. Ekuna. Hold on, let me try this again real quick. I've already done this before. I forgot what it means though. Let's see. Is that D-O-U-E? Is that what that says? Sono. Two sounds? Du sono. Ikuna. Ikuna. D-I-E-C-E. 10 tribes. Oh, that's what it is. It's 10 tribes of Israel. Basically, what that means is here are the 10 tribes of Israel in this exact land right here, right? So, you feel free to translate that on your own if you want to, as well as the rest of this map. Very interesting stuff. But look how close it is. The 10 tribes of Israel, the lost tribes of Israel, right? Right close to this particular island, right close to this plasma volcano, and right close to the Euphrates, the actual original Euphrates. Yes, you do have to type in my name to get my attention. Thank you so much, Linda. Appreciate you. Anybody in the chat? Anybody in the chat? So Israel. So these people were technologically advanced. They were spiritually advanced. And I'm being general. I'm using general terminology, okay? But if you lived here, if you're human and you lived here, you would live much longer than the humans who lived out here because you're closer to the largest of the blue beams, or the energetic source of life, the tree of life. There were many trees of life across the land that were dotted in different areas, okay? There are many volcanoes, like watch, where's Italy? Where's Italy on here? Let me zoom out. Italy would be, let me scooch the map around this way. Here's the Mediterranean. Right here, country shaped like a boot. So Mount Vesuvius is somewhere in the area here. Let's see if we can find Mount Vesuvius. This is all really, look how detailed this is. There's a house right there. Like, this is extremely detailed. You know what I mean? This is not just a made up map or anything. Mount Vesuvius. I don't exactly know where it is. But anyways, my point is all volcanoes were potential plasma volcanoes in the old world, right? They're all plugged up. They're all sealed up to keep people from going down inside. I mean, I don't know if it's to keep people from going into the hollow recesses of our world, but it definitely makes that happen. Okay, it prevents people from going down into the world because there's lava and there's plugs and rock and whatever in the way, as well as electrical fields. But anyways, you have to imagine all of these different volcanoes around the world are potential plasma volcanoes, right? So in the dark, we live during the dark right now. Okay, so it's technically nighttime, even though we have a night light that goes around that we call the sun. Back when in the time of light, there were these beams of light the world across, right? Scattered, of course, right? But people would flock to these beams of light, which typically came out of volcanoes. Now, you wonder why people would want to live near a volcano in the modern world. That's not a good idea, because we flip back and forth between the upside down and the right side up, right? Right now, we're in the upside down. But people would flock to these volcanoes or to these cave systems because there would be light, first and foremost, coming from them, and they would go towards the light in a land that's all foggy and it's hard to see, and there's phantazoids running around and stuff too, right? Giants and all kinds of stuff. They would go to the light, they would settle, around the light, right? Now, those lights are nowhere near as powerful as this one and the ones surrounding this island. There's many here, and they're the most powerful. They surround the whole place, and this place is energetically charged off the charts. So people who lived here became basically immortal in comparison to those who lived in the Southlands, even those who would live by these poles. The people who settled by the poles, that became their land. They inherited that land. They settled it. They're like, this is my family's land. We were here. They settled around it, and they became the nobility of that land. And they settled in what I call places of power, which oftentimes are volcanoes and caves and stuff. And then they would build buildings on top of those caves and stuff like that, and they would try to harness the energy, etc. But then the people who wanted to live near to them, they would allow sometimes to live on their land in a circle or in a circumference around the poles. The places where they settled at the poles became polises or cities. These were the first cities or settlements. People settled around an actual physical pole, or ethereal pole, I should say. And then the people who settled outside on the skirts of the circumference or the circle that goes around, that city, which is basically how far the effect of that light source extends, is a circumference around it, right? Those people would be on the outside of the circle or the orb. So they would be the suburbans, or that would be suburbia. That would be the suburbs, basically. That's where all that comes from. Let's see. What are all those holes? I don't know. I'm not sure what holes we're talking about. All right, I'm jumping back in the chat. Anything else? Oh, so that's ancient Tartaria, right? And keep in mind that when they did settle, at first they lived in tents like this, right? They put up these tents, and they had points, and they had little lightning rods sticking out of the top so that their tent wouldn't be struck by electricity to prevent it, because that's what lightning rods are for. They're to prevent electrical strikes, not to encourage them to happen. But if they did happen, you could tie something to it in order to redirect its flow and ground it, basically, so that it doesn't set fire to your tent or your house or whatever. So they came from a place that's the most electrically charged place in the world, which is this place right here. So they had, or I would expected that they would have, a lot of knowledge about electricity and plasma and, things of that nature. And then they brought that knowledge down into the Southlands, who may have had some, but not all of that experience and knowledge or technology, right? Which is today often referred to as antiquitech or antique technology. You know what I mean? So they brought all this stuff down here. They would eventually mingle with the locals, right? And they would move further down, further south, and establish themselves. And then they would start building, more. They would start building their architecture in a form that was suitable for the environment, and specifically for an electrically charged atmosphere the world across, right? It's not like the atmosphere. Remember, there's blue beams shooting up all over the place. The atmosphere was electrically amplified for a very long time, even after the blue beams retracted. They went down, and there's still resonant energy up there all over the place. But over time, it dwindled. And over time, that architecture that was built during the time of electrical amplification of our atmosphere held less meaning and less meaning and less meaning, until eventually people forgot its meaning altogether, and they forgot a lot of the old ways from the old world. And that's really all I wanted to say about ancient Tartaria, for today at least. All right, let me jump back in the chat, see if there's any questions or comments. What is the name of the map on the screen? All right, thank you, Kimberly. This is called the Urbano Monte, Urbano Monte, Monte, the Urbano map of 1587. So this was allegedly drawn out in the year 1587, or if you don't buy into the 1,000 years that were added to our calendar, the year 587, which would take you to the Dark Ages. Which makes sense to me why you see monsters on this map, and why it follows suit with an electrically charged environment, which would necessitate, people creating metallic armor to act as a walking Faraday cage to keep them from being electrocuted, and other things too. Let's see. Get Money Jones says, "Hey Jay, it has been said that the north is really south and south is really north." That's correct. Do I believe that? Yes. So, they switch. So keep in mind that we go through polarity reversals, right? And sometimes they keep the old name and sometimes they don't and they change it or whatever. And that's another thing too. All of the old place names, like for example, the Euphrates right here, when they left this area, they took their place names with them and they renamed all of these new areas and all of these new mountains and rivers and all of that after the quintessential home where they came from. They renamed them. Damn, what was the question? Oh, yes. So right now, the North Pole is actually the South Magnetic Pole, but we still call it the North Pole because it was probably, the name stuck, you know what I mean? But technically, you're right. It's totally the South Pole. And there really is, like, South is all the way around. On this map, on real maps, like, South is the edge all the way around here and even above. Okay, that electrical charge that we call South also goes up, okay, because it goes around the firmament itself. Yes. So next time when we go through the next polarity reversal, this will be north once more. Presley lives. Hey, thank you. I appreciate it. Susan Donahue, appreciate you too. Magnet Mountain says, JayDreamerZ, the north never forgets. Yes, very good. Good vibes to you, Carrie Robbins. Charlie, you're super welcome. Crystal says, do you have any thoughts on the smoky sun theory? I'm not sure what that is. Said to be the elemental body under the earth that causes eclipses. Okay, so I'm not sure if it causes eclipses or anything like that, but I do believe that there is a source energy. I read that book, The Smoky God, here on my channel. So I actually added some playlists to my channel, and one of those is like Jay's story time. So I put all of my books that I've read, basically, and that's one of them, is The Smoky God. So I've read the whole story here on my channel, and that story is all about this energetic source that is said to be, you know, in between our worlds and the world under ours, or in the hollows of our earth, where all of the electricity charges and comes together. And it would, you know, probably have a different pressure down there, and it would probably have fog and stuff. So it would be a smoky god. It would be a foggy electrical ball in the middle of the world. So yes, I do, and I like that theory. Let's see, anybody else? Oh yes, we got some more comments in the chat. Crystal is in the chat and says, oh, I already read that one. Yes, I read that one. Okay, thank you, Crystal. Silence says, Mr. J, you're a campaigner of all good things. That's kind. I appreciate it. Magnet Mountain says, Black Hole Sun. I have also broken down the Black Hole Sun video. And by the way, if you look at the Black Hole Sun video, you will notice it's not just a black hole in the sky. It's not just a depressurization point in the dome. There's an inverted dome, an eyeball looking down, which is the real moon, with a hole in it. If you pause that Black Hole Sun video, you'll see that. But yeah, I've definitely broken that down. Let's see. Yeah, story time. I'm starting to lose my voice, so I'm probably going to go pretty soon. All right. I don't know if it's absolutely true. I appreciate it, but I don't like to... I try to stay away from absolutes. You know what I mean? They gross me out. Alright, I think I will wrap things up for today. Let me go ahead and get this pulled down. I appreciate everyone joining me for Mesa, Magma, Mud Floods, and Melted Mountains. I'm looking forward to all of your comments and ideas and theories and things. You know, being a part of the community here on my channel. And, oh, I have a website, JayDreamerZ.com. I believe it's probably up here somewhere because I always forget to mention it. Excuse me. Check out my website. You'll like it. There is membership required for many of the pages. However, you do get a free 24-hour trial just to surf around and, you know, do a cram session or whatever you like, because there's a lot of information on my website and a lot more coming. My book, Ancient Oblivion, The Plasma Apocalypse, is currently available on Amazon. Go ahead and just type that in, and you can preview my book and see if you like that, and you can buy it if you'd like to. If you do donate my book, I would request that you donate it to like prisons or jails or like organizations where, you know, people, you know, are they're looking for knowledge, they're looking for truth, and they've already seen that the system's flawed and messed up. One of these days I'm probably going to pack up a whole bunch of my books and drive out to like one of the local prisons and see if I can donate them and stuff. So my website, please check that out. My book, check that out. On my website, you can also upload, your omens submissions if you have any omens videos or pictures that you'd like to share with me. And if you'd like me to be a guest on your channel as like a professional, speaker or a guest of some sort, with the hopes that I can, promote my work and my channel and my family and stuff. Which is why I have ads and why, all this stuff is so I can take care of my family and do this for a living. So for those of you who have supported me and continue to do so, I appreciate it. And last but not least, YouTube has told me recently that you all can take portions of my videos, my long ones like this one, and you can create clips. And you can actually clip out the little short pieces that you were like, wow, that was mind blowing, or that was awesome, or I really like this, what he said right here. You can clip that out. I believe there's like a clip button somewhere on there, under the video, and it will ask you to just pick the section you want, and then it'll give you a link. It'll generate a link just to that clip, and you can share it with other people, because I know people are not inclined to watch a 2-hour long presentation or, stuff like that. So if you start sharing those clips, we might get my channel to 100,000 subscribers. All right, until next time, thank you all so much. I appreciate all your support, and I'll see you then. Until then, I'm JayDreamerZ saying good vibes and goodbye. Hold on. Wait a minute. I forgot. I've been working on this documentary. I'm calling it a documentary, okay? It's going to be like a 7-part series or something. I've been working on that, so I have not done the new credits. So I'm about to roll last month's credits. So I just want to say I'm sorry to all the people that have recently joined. I will do the new credits tonight. I have a lot of work to do. I just wanted to say that just to be transparent. Okay, I'm almost always on top of the credits, but I have not done them yet. Tomorrow there will be a brand new credits, and all the new people will be on there. So thank you so much for understanding, and I'll see you guys next time.
But something's forcing me to stay.
Oh, you know what? I totally forgot to mention as well, because I was like, I had so much stuff I wanted to make sure I shared with everyone. Tonight is Sunday, and I almost always do a Truth in Movies presentation on Sundays. It's my favorite part of what I do. I love my Truth in Movies so very much, but I'm still working on that documentary thing, and it's a lot of video editing, so I did not have time to break down any movies tonight. So sad face, there's not going to be a Truth in Movies tonight, but maybe, I don't know. There's not going to be a Truth in Movies tonight. Sometimes I do throw on compilations just to sort of catch everyone up on, recent videos and stuff. But yeah, I just wanted to be forthright. I wanted to let you all know and be transparent. Like, no, there's no Truth in Movies tonight. But there will be next week. Okay. There definitely will be another Truth in Movies next week. We're going to finish up, Stranger Things, actually, season 1. I'm probably not going to go into season 2 or the other seasons or anything, because I feel like, people get the gist of it, right? But I will, in between regular movies, I will be breaking down the Lord of Rings, the Rings of Power, which is, wow, man, that was good. I watched it 3 times already, the whole season, 3 times, like once with my son and twice by myself. So, in between, I'll be breaking down the Rings of Power, and we'll do some other movies and stuff too. And, make sure to put your movie suggestions in the community section too, because I do check those out. All right, I'm really gonna